All right. Welcome in, everyone, to your deep dive, uniquely crafted just for you, into Alongo's story and America, the Tamil novel by V.N. Giritharan,
Oh, yeah.
translated into
Yeah.
English by Latha Ramakrishnan.
Yeah,
And this story really captivated both of us, I think it's safe to say, right?
absolutely.
And just to give a quick background, this is a story about a young Sri Lankan Tamil refugee who's escaping the violence of Black July in 1983
Right.
and trying to come to America to find, a better life.
Yeah. Seeking refuge, seeking that American dream,
Yeah,
but kind of finding the underbelly of that, right?
right. The dark side of the American dream, absolutely.
Yeah.
Alongo's escape from Sri Lanka is just absolutely gripping, the way Giritharan describes the chaos and the violence that Alongo's witnessing, for hiding on rooftops and fleeing Colombo.
Yeah.
You really feel the urgency
Mm.
and the fear in his actions. What stood out to you about this portrayal of Black July?
Well, I think, what's really powerful is how Giritharan uses Alongo's personal experience to convey, like, the larger historical context,
Yeah,
And we're not just reading a thriller.
right.
We're actually witnessing the human cost of ethnic conflict.
Right.
Like the desperation that drives people to flee their homes seeking safety.
Yeah, absolutely. Then he gets to America,
Yeah.
and it's such a jarring shift.
Yeah.
Because Alongo arrives,
Yeah.
and he's got this idealized vision of America
Of course, of course.
in his mind,
Right.
which was shaped by this childhood essay he wrote.
Mm-hmm.
But he ends up in a New York detention center,
Right.
and he's met with cramped dorms and strict routines and constant surveillance.
Right.
It's not exactly the welcoming, beacon of hope he was expecting.
Not exactly.
What details stood out to you about the detention center?
I thought the psychological manipulation was particularly disturbing.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, Ilongo describes tactics like sleep deprivation, just constantly fostering distrust among the detainees.
Oh, wow.
It really makes you question, like,
Yeah.
what does it mean to seek refuge when the environment itself is so hostile,
Right.
dehumanizing?
It's a complete shattering of expectations. I mean, he sought freedom,
Yeah,
but he's trapped
Yeah.
in another form of confinement.
you got it.
And it's not just the physical confinement.
Of course.
It's the psychological toll of being stripped of your autonomy and your sense of self.
Right. The system really, like, erodes their individuality,
Yeah.
making them feel like numbers rather than human beings.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, like, how does Giritharan bring this to life? What moments in the story
Yeah.
did you find particularly poignant in that regard?
Well, I think about the intake process. Ilongo describes it,
Yeah.
where, they're fingerprinted, photographed, assigned numbers.
Yeah.
It's like they're being stripped of their identities and reduced to data points.
Yeah.
And then later he talks about the constant head counts and the way they're always being watched and scrutinized.
Right.
Creates this pervasive sense of paranoia and powerlessness.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's within that system, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
he encounters this cast of characters
Oh, yeah.
just as diverse as the reasons they give for being in America, for seeking refuge in America.
Yeah. Each one brings such a unique perspective to the story.
Absolutely.
We've got Abdullah from Afghanistan, who's trapped in this bureaucratic limbo for years because of visa issues.
Right.
Then there's Daniel from El Salvador, whose anger towards American interventionism fuels this revolutionary spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Richard, who's the devout Christian who finds solace in prayer and acceptance.
Yeah.
Were there any characters you particularly gravitated to?
I was really drawn to Richard.
Well-
His resilience and ability to find peace in the midst of all this chaos. I mean, it made me think about how people cope with trauma and uncertainty.
Yeah.
Some people, like Daniel, they fight back with anger.
Mm-hmm.
Other people, like Richard, they find strength in faith and acceptance.
It shows that there's no single refugee experience.
Absolutely.
Right. Each individual brings their own history and their own beliefs, their own ways of coping,
Yeah.
which I think adds so much complexity to the narrative
Mm-hmm.
and challenges any preconceived notions we might have about what it means to be a refugee.
You got it. Yeah.
And this diversity experience is even further emphasized, I think, when we look at the daily routines inside the detention center.
Oh, absolutely.
What details about their lives within those walls did you find particularly revealing?
The resourcefulness of the detainees really
Yeah.
stood out to me.
Oh, tell me more.
I mean, they have to find ways to carve out moments of normalcy, to
Yeah.
connect with the outside world, to maintain some semblance of hope.
Right.
I mean, they're using stolen credit card numbers to make phone calls. They create these makeshift games. They find humor in the absurdity of their situation.
Mm-hmm.
It speaks to their resilience.
Yeah.
And their refusal to be completely broken by the system.
Absolutely.
And those pillow fights? What about those pillow fights?
Oh, the pillow pranks during head count?
Yeah, during head count.
Those were brilliant.
Yeah.
Such a small act of defiance.
Yeah.
Just injecting a little bit of humor and chaos into their otherwise regimented lives.
I know, it's great.
It showed that they hadn't completely surrendered to the system's control.
Right.
That they still possessed a spark of individuality and rebellion.
Yeah.
But it also made me think about the risks they were taking,
Exactly.
for those fleeting moments of amusement.
Exactly. There's this constant undercurrent of risk and uncertainty in their lives. Even something as harmless as a prank could have serious consequences in that environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's this unexpected twist
that
throws their whole situation into a new light.
Yeah.
The discovery of a legal technicality that could have granted them bail all along.
Ah, yes. That loophole
Yeah.
regarding illegal entry.
It's mind-boggling to me that they were eligible for bail the whole time.
Right.
But they remained detained because of a bureaucratic oversight.
I know, it's crazy.
It really exposes the Kafkaesque nature of the immigration system.
Yes.
The potential for individuals to get lost in the gears of a flawed and often indifferent bureaucracy.
And, it raises questions about the intentionality of these loopholes.
Yeah.
Are they genuine oversights, or are they deliberate mechanisms designed to keep people trapped?
Well, that's a great question for our listeners out there.
Right. What do you think?
It makes you think. It really does.
Yeah.
And it brings us to the contrasting roles of these external forces in Ilongo's journey.
You got it.
The novel doesn't just focus on the internal dynamics of the detention center.
Mm-hmm.
It also explores the impact of these outside influences, both positive and negative.
Yeah, the Tamil Association and Father Abraham.
Yes. I was surprised by the Tamil Association's kind of lukewarm support. I was expecting them to be more proactive in helping their fellow Tamils.
Yeah.
But it was Father Abraham, the Tamil Nadu priest working in New York, who emerges as this beacon of hope.
A real ally.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful contrast. You've got this official organization that's maybe bogged down in bureaucracy or internal politics, outshone by an individual who's acting out of pure compassion and a sense of shared humanity. His visits and phone calls offered Ilongo and the others a lifeline to the outside world.
Right, a reminder that they weren't forgotten.
What struck you about Father Abraham's role in the story?
Well, I mean, just his presence, just underscores the power of human connection, the impact that even small acts of compassion can have on those who are struggling.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it also made me think about the role of faith and spirituality, providing solace and strength. Yeah.
In times of adversity.
Absolutely. But it also raises questions about the limitations of individual action, right?
Right, of course.
And addressing these systemic issues.
Yeah, exactly.
As much as we celebrate Father Abraham's kindness, it also exposes the gaps in the system.
Right.
The fact that these individuals are often left relying on the goodwill of strangers rather than the institutions that are supposed to protect them.
Yeah, it highlights the need for systemic change alongside these individual acts of compassion. Yeah, and speaking of impactful individuals, the arrival of Vijaya Bhaskaran, this well-connected newcomer, it's a major turning point.
Oh, yeah.
In the story.
He throws a wrench in the works.
He does.
Yeah.
He secures his release on bail, which leads to the discovery of the legal error in Ilongo's case.
Right.
It's almost poetic.
Yeah.
You know how the actions of this one individual, seemingly unrelated to Ilongo's plight, create this ripple effect that leads to this significant change in his fate.
It really highlights that interconnectedness of their lives.
Yes.
The unpredictable nature of events and how these seemingly insignificant occurrences can have profound consequences.
It makes you think about the delicate balance of chance and agency,
Maybe it is.
in shaping our destinies. And that's really just the beginning of their journey.
Yeah.
The novel goes on to explore the complexities of their release, the lasting impact of their detention, and the bittersweet reality of freedom, tinged with the knowledge that others are still trapped within the system.
Right. But before we delve further into that,
Yeah.
let's pause here for a moment and reflect on what we've discussed so far.
So let's take a moment to process all of this. I mean, it's been
Yes.
quite a roller coaster ride already.
I know.
But it's important to sit with these ideas and to truly grasp the weight of Ilongo's experience
Absolutely.
and what it reveals about the world we live in.
Yeah. Listener, do the same.
Yeah.
Reflect on what resonates with you. What challenges your assumptions?
Yeah.
What sparks your curiosity?
Absolutely.
Because this conversation is far from over.
Far from over. We'll be back. You know, we've been talking about Ilongo's journey, this Sri Lankan Tamil refugee.
Right.
And I'm really struck by this jarring contrast between his hopes and the reality he finds when he comes to America.
Yeah, it really illustrates how that American dream can kind of become a mirage for people seeking refuge from violence and oppression.
Yeah.
Ilongo's experience challenges us to think about that gap, between this idealized image of America that we often see portrayed versus like what people actually experience when they arrive, seeking safety and a better life.
Right. It's like the novel's holding a mirror up to this dream and exposing the cracks and the inconsistencies.
Absolutely.
But I'm curious, like, for those of us who haven't lived through that experience, how does Giritharan bridge that gap?
Yeah.
How does he make Ilongo's story relatable to readers who might not have a direct connection to the refugee experience?
I think he does it through the universality of human emotions.
Yeah.
Ilongo's feelings of fear and hope and disillusionment and resilience. These are all emotions we can connect with on some level.
Right.
And by grounding the narrative in those shared human experiences, Giritharan invites us to walk in his shoes, to see the world through Ilongo's eyes, even if our lives are vastly different.
Absolutely. The novel also looks at the immigration system.
Yeah.
Right, like all the intricacies of it.
Yeah.
And it reveals this kind of confusing and often seemingly arbitrary nature of it.
Yeah.
I mean, this legal loophole that could have gotten Ilongo and his companions bail all along. It just shows how easily individuals can get lost in this bureaucratic labyrinth.
It's a reminder that systems that are designed to protect can sometimes trap people in a web of rules and procedures that they don't fully understand.
And it makes you wonder, are these loopholes and delays accidental byproducts of a complex system?
Right.
Or are they these deliberate mechanisms of control?
That's a good question.
What do you think?
Yeah, listener, what do you think?
Yeah.
I think the novel wants us to think about that.
Yeah.
Move beyond those simplistic explanations and really grapple with the nuances of these systems.
Yeah.
Who benefits from these delays?
Yeah. Right.
And who bears the burden of the consequences?
Yeah. We've talked about the individual stories within the detention center, but the novel kind of zooms out and gives us this broader perspective on global refugee crises.
Absolutely.
It connects Ilongo's journey to these larger forces that displace people from their homes.
Exactly. It reminds us these aren't isolated events.
Right.
But rather they're symptoms of larger political, economic, and social issues. Yeah. By weaving together these individual narratives and the global perspective, the novel asks us to consider the interconnectedness of our world. Yeah. And the shared responsibility we have in addressing these crises.
It's not just about understanding the plight of refugees, but also recognizing the factors that contribute to their displacement.
Exactly.
Right. Recognizing the role of conflict, poverty, persecution, and climate change, in forcing people to flee their homes.
And it asks us to move beyond simply offering sympathy.
Right.
And think about concrete actions, that we can take to address the root causes of these crises.
So for listeners out there who are feeling overwhelmed by these global challenges, what actions, big or small, can we take to make a difference?
I mean, I know it can feel daunting,
but
it's important to remember that small acts of engagement can have a ripple effect. And it starts with education, reading books like this one, staying informed about current events.
Right.
Learning about the organizations working on the ground.
It's a great starting point. And I think it doesn't have to be overwhelming.
Right.
There are so many ways to get involved.
Of course.
You can volunteer your time. donate to organizations supporting refugees, or even just engage in conversations with your family and friends to raise awareness.
Absolutely. It's about finding your entry point.
Yeah.
And committing to consistent action, however small it may seem.
I like that.
And remember, change happens both from the bottom up and the top down.
Yeah.
So engaging in political advocacy, supporting candidates who prioritize human rights, voting for policies that promote a more just and welcoming society.
Yeah.
Those actions matter.
They do. They do.
Yeah.
The novel also touches upon the psychological toll of displacement.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
The challenge of rebuilding a life in a new country.
Yeah.
While still grappling with the trauma of the past.
Yeah. Ilongo struggles with this sense of dislocation. Being caught between two worlds, not fully belonging anywhere.
Right.
These are universal questions.
Yeah.
But they become so poignant for someone experiencing this forced migration.
It's like he's carrying the weight of his past with him.
Yeah.
Even as he's trying to build this new life in America.
Right.
Those emotional scars.
Right.
The unspoken traumas.
Yeah.
Really add another layer of complexity to the refugee experience.
Absolutely. And the novel doesn't shy away from depicting those struggles.
Yeah.
We see moments of despair, anger, confusion as he tries to navigate this unfamiliar terrain of American culture while still processing the trauma of what he left behind.
There's that scene where he's walking through Times Square.
Yeah.
And he's surrounded by this bustling energy of the city. But he feels completely disconnected. Like he's observing life from a distance.
Yeah.
He's there, but he's not there.
He's physically present, but emotionally absent.
Yeah.
Lost in a world that's both alluring and alienating.
Yeah. Yes, it perfectly captures that sense of dislocation that many refugees experience.
Yeah.
This feeling of being caught between two worlds, not fully belonging to either.
Exactly.
It really emphasizes the importance of understanding that psychological impact of displacement.
Yes.
Not just the physical and logistical challenges.
Exactly.
But the novel also highlights the power of community and shared experience in helping people cope with these challenges.
The bonds that Ilongo forms with the other detainees.
Yeah.
These people from all over the world who have also experienced this displacement and loss become a source of strength and solidarity.
It's so vital.
Yeah.
These connections.
Absolutely.
They offer a sense of belonging.
Yes.
A space where they can share their stories, their fears, their hopes, without judgment.
Yeah.
They create a microcosm of the world that they left behind, a place where cultural differences fade in the face of shared humanity.
Yes.
And there's this beautiful scene where they all gather to celebrate Diwali, this Hindu festival of lights.
Right.
And it's this moment of joy and connection, a temporary escape from the realities of their confinement. And it reminded me of the power of rituals and traditions, in providing that sense of continuity and hope in the midst of uncertainty and upheaval.
It's a testament to that resilience of the human spirit.
Absolutely.
To find beauty and meaning in even the most challenging circumstances.
Yeah, and it makes me think about how we can create these welcoming and inclusive spaces for refugees and immigrants in our own communities.
Right.
How can we make people from diverse backgrounds feel valued and supported?
It starts with recognizing that diversity is a strength and not a weakness,
Yeah.
Being open to different cultures, perspectives, ways of life.
Yeah.
Actively challenging prejudice and discrimination.
Right.
Creating that climate of respect and understanding.
Yeah, it's about going beyond tolerance and embracing true inclusion.
Yes.
Recognizing that everyone has something valuable to offer.
Absolutely.
Creating opportunities for meaningful interactions, fostering those connections that go beyond the surface.
Exactly. It's building bridges, not walls.
I like that.
Yeah.
And remembering we all play a role in creating a world where everyone feels like they belong.
Yeah.
We've talked about the challenges, the systemic flaws, the psychological toll, but amidst all of that, this novel offers this glimmer of hope. These characters' resilience, their acts of kindness, their determination to rebuild their lives.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of circumstances, the human spirit can endure and even thrive.
It's a testament to the power of hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The belief that things can get better.
Yeah.
The refusal to give in to despair.
Right. It's challenging us to nurture that hope, not just for ourselves, but for those who are struggling.
Absolutely. It's recognizing that even those small acts of kindness those small gestures of support can make a difference in someone's life.
Yeah.
Never losing sight of that fact that every individual has that potential to create positive change.
Yeah, and the novel doesn't just leave us with despair or resignation.
Right.
It inspires us to take action.
Exactly.
But before we get into that call to action, let's pause and reflect on what we've discussed.
Yeah, listener, take a moment to absorb all of this. What resonates with you most?
Yeah.
What questions are swirling in your mind?
Yeah.
What emotions are you grappling with?
Yeah.
Let those thoughts and feelings simmer as we move into the final part.
Okay. So we've really gone deep into America.
Yeah.
Exploring Ilongo's journey from Sri Lanka to that New York detention center and all the complexities of that refugee experience.
Absolutely.
But I'm curious now about those moments of release. You know what comes after. Does the novel give us any insight into how they rebuild their lives after such a harrowing experience?
It does, and it's a really important part of the story.
Okay.
Gaining physical freedom is one thing, but the journey doesn't just end there.
Right.
You know, Ilongo and the others still have this daunting task of navigating this new culture, finding jobs, rebuilding their lives while still carrying the weight of their past.
Yeah.
So, you know, their release isn't depicted as like this triumphant ending, but more as the beginning of a whole new set of challenges.
So it really reinforces that idea that the impact of that trauma and displacement doesn't just disappear once you're free.
It lingers.
Yeah.
You know, it shapes your perceptions. It influences your choices.
Yeah.
Sometimes even manifests in really unexpected ways.
The novel touches upon those long-term psychological effects of their detention.
Yeah.
You know, like how it impacts their relationships, their sense of self, their ability to trust.
Trauma's a process. Yeah.
It's not an event.
Right.
It often requires a lot of support and understanding.
And it doesn't always go away.
No.
I think about that scene toward the end.
Yeah.
Where Ilongo is living in that little apartment in Queens, and he has a panic attack triggered by a siren.
Yes.
It's like those traumatic experiences can come back, even when you're safe.
Right, even when you're seemingly safe.
Yeah.
You know, even in a supportive community.
And surrounded by people who care about you.
Yes.
You know, those seemingly mundane sounds or sights, they can just bring you right back.
They can evoke that visceral response.
Yeah, to a place of fear and vulnerability.
It really underscores the need for sensitivity and awareness.
Right.
You know, recognizing that the healing process doesn't always follow this neat path.
It makes me think about the responsibility we have to provide resources and support.
Of course.
You know, for refugees and immigrants who are dealing with that kind of trauma.
Yes.
It's not enough to just let them in. Right, exactly.
Yeah, we need to help them heal and adapt and thrive. We talked about the American dream and how the novel kind of challenges that notion. But what about the ending?
Yeah.
Does Ilongo find his own version of it?
I mean, the ending's intentionally ambiguous.
Okay.
You know, it doesn't tie everything up in a neat bow.
Yeah.
Ilongo does find some stability, a sense of purpose.
Right.
But there's still this lingering sense of loss.
Right.
This recognition that some things can't be fully recovered or replaced.
It's not a fairy tale ending.
No.
But it's not a tragedy either.
Right.
It's more like real life.
Yeah, messy.
Yeah.
Contradictory.
There's hope. But it's mixed with that recognition of sacrifice and challenges.
And I think that ambiguity makes it so thought-provoking.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't give you those easy answers.
Right.
You have to grapple with those complexities of the immigrant experience. The impact of trauma, the search for identity and belonging.
It's a reminder that these stories don't end when the book closes.
No, they don't.
They continue to unfold in the lives of real people all around us.
Yes.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's that one thought you want to leave with the listener?
Well, I would say that America by V.N.Giritharan is more than just a novel.
Okay.
It's a mirror reflecting the complexities of our world. You know, it's an invitation to engage with these human stories, to challenge our assumptions about immigration, and to think about how we can create a world where everyone has that opportunity to build a life with dignity and hope.
And that's a powerful message.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to the power of literature, you know, to open our minds and inspire us to action.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend checking out this book.
Absolutely.
and immersing yourself in a Longo's story.
Yeah, you won't regret it.
Yeah. And until next time, everyone,
Yeah.
keep diving deep.